In the midst of the Cold War, a time of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, Cuba, only 90 miles away from U.S. territory, was going through a period of revolution and change. In 1959, Fidel Castro and his guerrilla overthrew the US-backed dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista and established a socialist society ruled solely by the Communist Party and aligned with the Soviet Union. Cuba-US relationships worsened as Castro expropriated all US properties, and the United States imposed economic sanctions and secret operations to overthrow his regime. On October 16, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane revealed some photographs of suspicious construction activity in western Cuba. A low-flying RF-8AS later confirmed that Soviet nuclear missiles and infrastructures were being installed in San Cristobal, Guanajay, Zahuala Grande, and Remedios. These missiles, the SS-4 Sandal and the SS-5 Skin, were able to reach American territory. U.S. President John F. Kennedy did not reveal to the Soviet Union's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andrei Gromyko, that he knew about the missiles during their meeting in the Oval Office on October 18th. By that day, Kennedy had met during several days with his advisors, who waited between an invasion to overthrow Castro from power, suggested by the Joint Chief of the Executive Committee of National Security, or a blockade proposed by the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara. They decided on the blockade, called quarantine because of diplomacy purposes. On October 22nd at 7 p.m., Kennedy reveals in a televised speech the existence of the missiles to the American people and the establishment of the naval blockade around Cuba until the Soviet Union agrees to dismantle them.
Acting, therefore, in the defense of our own security and of the entire Western Hemisphere, and under the authority entrusted to me by the Constitution, as endorsed by the resolution of the Congress, I have directed that the following initial steps be taken immediately. First, to halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated.
The reaction in Miami was almost immediate.
We could see in Miami what the rest of the nation didn't experience. We saw trains delivering supplies to soldiers to Deep South Day, where they set up these anti-missile bases there. We saw military trucks going down US 1 heading south also. We saw stores just being, all their goods, all their food items being sold out because we didn't know, and I mentioned this earlier, the uncertainty we had about the future. So I think that Miami was really on the cutting edge of a lot of this, more so than any other city because of our close proximity to Cuba, whereas most of the rest of the company didn't. They were scared to death, and we got to be resolute. We got to support our government, our president, and all that, which is important. But we saw it at firsthand. We saw soldiers all over the place. My girlfriend, I remember her talking about how she saw soldiers around Miami-Dade County Junior College, as it was known then. And that was the first year they moved to that site. They'd been over 95th Street and Northwest 17th Avenue prior to that. Wow. So we saw it firsthand, this militarization. But just as quickly as it appeared, it left because the crisis was resolved in about 13 days.
An article in the Miami Herald on October 25, 1962, highlighted how Civil Defense Headquarters received constant inquiries about where is the nearest fallout shelter and what should I do in the case of a nuclear attack here. Families in Miami ran to the stores to buy supplies, mostly canned goods and bottled water. They, however, affirmed that they were not stockpiling.
How much does this order cost you?
I spent $18.90.
Is this your normal order, or are you stockpiling?
Oh, I'm not stockpiling. I feel that if anything were to happen, you wouldn't be able to eat it anyhow.
You, ma'am, how much did your order cost you?
My order came to $19.70. That's my regular weekly order.
You're not stockpiling then?
No, I'm not, but I noticed that most of the Cuban families are really loading up. I don't know what they're afraid of if we aren't. But I noticed one order came to about $45.
On the other hand, David Goodman, the supermarket official, tells the press that they are about to run on canned goods.
This busy. In the 20-odd years that I've been in this industry, in the food industry, it is rare that I have seen the mobs that have come into our stores since yesterday at approximately 12 o'clock. I could possibly compare this type of shopping to our 1948 hurricane, but we have been jammed up, we have been mobbed. People are buying like food is going out of style, primarily because of this Cuban crisis and our proximity to the Cuban situation.
Cuban exiles believe, however, that this event would definitely end the Castro regime. Tonight's message gives us hope, said a Cuban exile to the Miami Daily News on October 23rd. Another article, this time from the Miami Herald, reads, "Exiles don't stick, shout with joy." A Cuban exile interview that day stated, "After 3 years of constant fight against the totalitarian regime of Fidel Castro, I see the final liberation of my beloved and unconquerable country very close."
The Cuban American community actually was very excited. And the reason was because they figured, okay, the next step is that they are going to go after the Castro regime, and this is going to lead eventually to Castro being removed from power. So those who had been here at this point for maybe a couple of years were very excited because they were looking forward to going back home. Of course, we know that it didn't work out that way, and that actually the opposite happened, that Kennedy promised that he would not invade Cuba. But that was very interesting to me because in the moment of this extreme fear, we also have this extreme joy.
Both the Miami Herald on its article, "Exiles Rush to Join Up," and the Miami Daily News on Young Cubans Flock to Join Yankee Army show on October 25th that over 10,000 Cuban exiles volunteered to enlist in the army forces. Among them, a 78-year-old man begging for the chance to join. Research showed that the Cuban Missile Crisis solidified Cuban Americans' strong anti-communist and anti-Castro political identity, strengthening their view of the U.S. as a potential savior from political oppression. This event reinforced their belief that the U.S. foreign policy toward Cuba should not be softened, and it helped them coalesce into a powerful political bloc that has significantly influenced U.S. policy on Cuba.
This was really what turned Cuban Americans against the Democratic Party, period, right? So obviously, in the aftermath, there was a great deal of disappointment because part of the deal that Kennedy worked out with Khrushchev, who was Soviet premier at the time that this was happening, was that there would be no invasion of Cuba. So many felt very disappointed, maybe a certain level of betrayal, right? Because on the one hand, the United States is very staunchly involved in the Cold War, and then on the other hand, they are allowing this dictator, this threat, to remain in power so close to the United States.
However, Miamians understood that, in times of crisis, they must come together and hope for diplomacy. An October 24th article from the Miami Herald titled "Miamians Are Turning to Prayer" illustrates this sentiment. During the 13 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Metro Commission at the Greater Miami Rabbinical Association requested all believers that they should pray for a peaceful resolution to the current conflict.
Felt like we're all in the same boat. When you talk about nuclear warfare, nobody escapes it, no matter who you are. And so, we understood, different groups, different cultures understood that, we're all susceptible to, if it ever happened, to a nuclear destruction. I think it did. I think at Mass on Sundays, there were sometimes discussions about that, prayers for it, say at the end of Mass. So I think in some ways it was kind of a unifying experience and fear.